Derrick Henry doesn't care about his age. That man is an absolute beast. We react to the best and the worst fantasy performances in week 4 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We are through week 4. We had a lot of great performances, a lot of bad ones, a lot of disappointing ones, as always. That's going to happen. But we're going to go through the best, the worst, the most surprising performances as well. Those surprising guys, we'll be talking about if you should pick them up on waiver wires or maybe trade for them. We'll get into all that good stuff. But let's start with Derrick Henry, because last night he went absolutely berserk. 199 rushing yards, 24 carries, a touchdown, got a touchdown through the air. And he gets the Bengals next week and then the Commanders after that. But he has been on fire these last 2 weeks, finished as a running back 2 and 1 so far. Amazing first round pick. Would you say the best one so far, Vinny?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's hurt. Breece Hall's disappointing. Bijan Robinson had a rough game as well. So those guys are in the top 3. Jonathan Taylor's now hurt. Saquon Barkley has been up and down. Derrick Henry has scored consistently here in every game. He seems to be getting more into a groove with the Ravens offense. And look, this matchup really called for Derrick Henry. The Bills are weak at linebacker here with all their injuries. Next week, he gets the Bengals, who are just wilting against the run as we just watch all their guys fall apart at defensive tackle. So when you look at Derrick Henry, I mean, they tried so hard to get him that 200 yards in the game. He did also have a receiving touchdown, which is great news that they're using him like that as well when they need him in the red zone. It was a really nice play there. So Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, as we suspected here, they're being their own decoys. It's really hard to know who has the ball. And it's really opening it up. Like, they can basically do whatever they want when they're in the red zone. They got Justice Hill involved, and I think that actually helped Derrick Henry because he's a good change of pace. Hill's just looking really good and fast, and we're wondering why they didn't really go after anyone with Keaton Mitchell's injury. Well, Hill was looking good. Like, he's a very good complementary back. I mean, you get pounded by Derrick Henry, then you get this guy use speed and quickness on the outside. So that's actually helping. They're managing his workload really well. And when you're not getting touched, like he wasn't touched on an 87-yard touchdown run, he's not really getting the wear that we're looking at. And I love that the Ravens reshuffled their offensive line a little bit to make sure that their blocking was all tight. And it's been great. And I don't see him slowing down. And we thought this could be the case. That we knew he's going to score a lot of touchdowns in this offense, but then to throw it back to his best days, that's just awesome.
Yeah, he's looking amazing. Happy that they're starting to, really feed him the ball because that's when he's his best self. Some really great quarterback performances this week. 3 names, not who. It's just so funny. Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold. Those 3 with Sam Darnold, he continues to ball out. Baker and Justin finish as the quarterback 1 and the quarterback 2 on the week. But then also Jayden Daniels keeps doing his thing. He's quarterback 4 so far in the week. It wasn't like an insane game from him, but he's now the quarterback 1 on the season, and he's only thrown 3 passing touchdowns. So the sky's the limit for this dude. He does have a couple tough matchups coming up. Jayden Daniels will be facing the Browns and then at the Ravens the next 2 weeks, but he's just an every week start. You don't consider benching him even in tough matchups.
Yeah, I mean, I touted Jayden Daniels the whole time. He was a better pick than Anthony Richardson. We said this over and over again. If you're listening and watching to the show, don't invest in Richardson. Don't invest in C.J. Stroud. Even you look at the production from last night. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes didn't have a big game. Josh Allen had a second straight clunker. I mean, didn't have a lot that was going to go in his favor there. Different type of offense. Jalen Hurts hasn't been off to a hot start. So, again, this is why you had to wait at QB a little bit. And Lamar Jackson's been okay, and he was pretty good last night playing off Derrick Henry. But, I mean, all these values that were down the board, we talked about Baker Mayfield. And, again, there was not that much was changing. He still had his weapons and guys that could help him produce as a back-end quarterback one. Now they're going to be a little bit more volatile, Mayfield and Sam Darnold. When you think they're good and you put them in a matchup, because they're pocket passers, right? They can't give you that floor of running. So they need to get it all done through the air. But Jayden Daniels, again, has that cheat code in his favor. So that's always going to help him from week to week. And speaking of cheat code, I mean, Justin Fields, look, this is what I envisioned could happen in an Arthur Smith offense with him, that he was going to be the leading rusher. He was going to throw potentially all over the field, and he looked good throwing intermediate routes to George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. Goes for 300 yards passing. When did that happen? Very often when he was with the Bears. So I'm so impressed with Justin Fields. I hope they keep starting him. I'm not worried it's the Cowboys next week. They give up a lot of rushing yards. He's a mobile quarterback. Let's just hope they don't think about Russell Wilson at this point. Even though they lost the game, I thought you've seen signs of improvement from Justin Fields every week here, and that was true against the Colts.
Yeah, and it could have even been a bigger game from Fields. Pickens fumbled right near getting close to the goal line. It's just, he was running, passing all over the place. He looked really good, besides that one terrible sack he took where he fumbled the ball. But again, like, he's quarterback 6 on the week. This was really his first good fantasy week, though. He did finish as the quarterback 1 on the week. You brought up they get Dallas next week. With those injuries on defense, I do think he's playable guy. Baker's now finished as a top 5 quarterback in 3 of 4 weeks. Quarterback 2, 5, 27, and 3. That's the issue with Baker, is he does have that 27, finish in his pocket in any given week. You never know when Baker's going to have a Baker Mayfield down week. But he's been killing it. Gets a couple harder matchups against the Falcons and Saints the next 2 weeks. And then even after that, the Ravens, the Falcons again, the Chiefs, the 49ers, not a great run for him. And then with Sam Darnold, he's by far leading the league in touchdowns. He has like 11 passing touchdowns. Still only the quarterback 7 though on the year. I find that shocking. Finished as a quarterback 14, 4, 9, and 5. Like, he's been insanely better than we thought. He gets the Jets next week. Revenge game, maybe. But the Jets defense is really good. And then a bye. So do you think you should trade him now on this high, or do you think this is just going to continue?
It might be hard to trade Sam Darnold to convince somebody, hey, he's good, but I do like him as a backup. I do like him as a super flex play, because again, he's going to be attached to Justin Jefferson every single week, and that helps. But I will say buyer beware on Darnold for this reason. This team was like one of the highest volume passing teams last year, like 63%. They're down to like 54%. And part of it is they want to run the ball. They're playing good defense. And you've seen his volume kind of taper off at the back of games. I mean, he's very touchdown worthy, right? At this point, he's not pushing for 300 yards because they don't need to when they're creating turnovers and their defense is playing well. And the other thing that's come into play is his turnovers have actually sneakily racked up here. He had 3 interceptions now. That's still a decent high total for 4 games. And he lost a fumble yesterday when he got sacked and didn't keep the ball. So the wheels could come off here at any point with Sam Darnold. I think right now, so far, so good. They have a pretty favorable schedule. I think it's like the Colts, Jaguars, and Titans all around the corner. So there are some really good matchups here for him. But again, I think he should be rostered at least as a backup or streaming option in most leagues. I'd say 12 or bigger, you should have Sam Darnold in play in your league, even if it's not a super flex. I think he needs to be an option in a given week. Again, Kirk Cousins was a top QB in this offense. So, again, if you need somebody and he's got a top receiver, I mean, you could do a lot worse than Sam Darnold.
Yeah. And I've never seen someone get so many opportunities. Like, the defense just keeps getting turnovers and like putting Sam Darnold at like the 15-yard line.
Big assist to them.
And that's not going to hold up. So again, like if anyone is interested in trading for Sam Darnold in your league, go shoot out some trades. Some wide receivers that had huge games. Nico Collins, beast, 12 receptions, 151 yards and a touchdown. He's been a steal in drafts. He's been great. You just keep playing him. Mike Evans finally saw a bunch of targets, 14 targets, 94 yards and a touchdown. He's now had 2 big weeks, finishes the wide receiver 6 in week 1. So far as a wide receiver 6 in week 4, heading into Monday night, and then 2 down really terrible weeks, right? But that's the Mike Evans experience. That's what you're going to get. That's why you drafted him for those big games. But the guy I really want to hit on here is Jayden Reed of the Packers. It seems like with Jordan Love Jayden Reed is going to be a top tier option. 139 receiving yards and a touchdown against the Vikings. He's the wide receiver 4 in fantasy this season, despite having those 2 terrible weeks with Malik Willis as the quarterback. But with Jordan Love, he's finished as the wide receiver 1, and right now he's the wide receiver 2 in week 4. Gets a great schedule coming up against the Rams, Cardinals, Texans, Jaguars, and Lions. Those are the next 5 games, and Christian Watson is injured. So Jayden Reed, I love him moving forward.
Yeah, I'll say, well, look at the other Packers weapons that came through in a bit, but man, I mean, I want this offense to be a little bit more compressed. We talked about, they have these young receivers, young tight ends. I think they're starting to weed out who's not the reliable guy. And I think you look at Christian Watson, he absolutely cannot stay healthy. Jayden Reed has been the man the whole way. So now that you have your quarterback back, and maybe the Packers defense will stink as well a little bit more, so you can have some passing volume and spread it around Jordan Love, that'll be great. But yeah, Jayden Reed is locked in. He's just such a weapon. And then again, he reminds me a little bit of Deebo Samuel, that they can use him in a variety of ways. They want to make sure he gets enough touches to make an impact.
And now Travis Kelce came through. He's tight end 5 so far in the week, but it's just because he didn't score a touchdown, so he's not higher. But 9 targets, 7 receptions, 89 yards. And a big part of that was Rashee Rice going down. It looks like we're going to lose Rice for the season, feared to have torn his ACL. I don't know if that's confirmed just as yet as we're recording this, but with Rice out, Kelce's going to get a lot of those targets. And then Xavier Worthy, he had a 54-yard receiving touchdown. Hopefully Worthy will end up getting more targets now that Rice is out too, but Worthy's still going to be very dependent on those big plays. I think the one that, benefits the most from this Rice injury is definitely Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Kelce is going to be the go-to guy that Patrick Mahomes trusts the most, right, all over the field. I mean, there is a trust factor there as well with Worthy developing, but he's a rookie, so that's going to take a little while to get to the same spot. And also, he's not necessarily the short-term intermediate, get open, move the chains type guy, right? He's the big play threat. So that's one thing we have to consider. Now we're going to see, are they going to make a move? Marquise Hollywood-Brown has a shoulder injury. It doesn't look like he's going to return either this season. So, I mean, best laid plans they have, are they going to go look at Amari Cooper? Are they going to go rescue DeAndre Hopkins? Are they going to go after Kyle Pitts? We'll talk about him later, but there's a lot of things that they could do that it's intriguing here to help this offense, because, again, they're going for 3 straight Super Bowls. I would not be surprised if they make a notable move here to replace Rice.
Yeah, Devontae Adams seems to also be on the block, so we will see what happens there if they make a move. But we're going to get into the most disappointing performances of week 4. And my boy, Kyler Murray, is on this list. Did not come through against the Commanders. I don't know what happened there, but we will dig into all of those bad performances right after a quick break. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I've used this app so many times whenever I need to buy tickets. It's great because you can see your seat before you purchase, so you know exactly where you're sitting. You know exactly what your views look like. There's no like, oh my goodness, there's this big, post pot. Oh my goodness, there's this big, thing obstructing my view from seeing the game. You're not going to have any of that, right? Not with Game Time. Also, you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps and you're set, and tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Take the guessing work out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Terms to apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Kyler Murray against the Commanders that were just giving up so many points to quarterbacks. He only ends up being the quarterback 20 on the week so far, with 142 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 rushing yards. So now it's been 2 good games for Murray, 2 bad games for Murray throughout this year. But it does worry me a lot that he didn't get it done against the Commanders, and neither did Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, I think we learned that he needs Trey McBride out there. Everyone, I guess he's the glue in the middle of the field that gives him that target, where Harrison, of course, drew the attention, but he did get off to a good start. He did get the touchdown. It wasn't a big day, but part of it was Kyler Murray was struggling on the front end of this. The Commanders really got after it. They had 4 sacks. I mean, they're not known for their pressure, but what happened here is the game script didn't go really in their favor, where they got behind, and then I think there was a lot of pressure on Murray, maybe to prove that he was better than Jane Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, maybe being on the other sideline, maybe put a little pressure on him to press a little bit and try to do too much. So who knows? But maybe the Commanders' defense also starting to find a little bit under Dan Quinn. So that's the thing, is the early sample size is difficult, right? I mean, you had the Broncos that looked terrible, and then they got tightened defensively pretty quick here. So we're still learning a lot about these teams as we go forward. But yeah, I think you're just disappointed because, again, you thought he'd be motivated. Daniels, another Heisman winner, protege of his former coach. You'd be like, okay, we're going to go up and down the field and duel with this guy. That did not happen at all. And he just was under pressure, contained. Maybe they just didn't have as good of a game plan as the Commanders did going in. So I would not stress too much about it with Kyler Murray. But again, it's just a little concerned that if he doesn't McBride and he's not running enough, is he going to give you that fantasy value? So let's hope Trey McBride can return, because I think that's important not only for Murray, but also for Marvin Harrison getting open deep.
Yeah, and it was a concussion for McBride, so he should be back next week.
Yeah.
I mean, Murray still has scored more fantasy points than guys like Joe Burrow, Stroud, Patrick Mahomes. So it's not like you're going to give up on Murray yet
No.
at all. You keep playing him, but we definitely were hoping for a much bigger game than that. Someone that I thought could be a sleeper this week, Caleb Williams. It just stinks. I don't know. 157 passing yards, 1 touchdown, only 12 rushing yards, scores 11 fantasy points. The wide receivers, DJ Moore got lucky. Well, not lucky, but DJ Moore kind of salvaged his fantasy day by the touchdown, but only had 3 receptions for 22 yards. Rome Odunze, who we thought was going to have a huge day against this Rams secondary, 1 reception, 10 yards, and 3 targets. Keenan Allen doesn't do anything either. It's just DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift. We'll talk about him in the surprising segment, but DeAndre Swift did everything for this team. What do you do with Caleb Williams? What do you do with these wide receivers? Because DJ Moore has now not finished higher than wide receiver 31 in any given week. Adunze has been unplayable for 3 out of 4 weeks. He had a great week 3, but besides that, terrible game. So what are you doing with these guys?
Yeah, I think you don't want the Bears to have too easy of a matchup. When I say that, you don't want to face a bad offense, because their defense is very good. I'll just say that. I mean, they have Montez Sweat. They've got really good corners here. They really made it tough on the Rams. I mean, you can run on them. That's about it you can do. But if you're trying to pass on the Bears, so you're not going to do a lot. So, again, they need a little bit of resistance. They get the Panthers this week. It's a beatable matchup at home, but are they going to just run all over the Panthers, right? Do they want to just let Caleb Williams loose? They seem to be a bit up and down on that, right? Maybe they want to get all their guys together and just say you could go for it. But they were reluctant here to let him loose after we just saw it against the Colts. So I guess they're trying to just win games, which is important here. Like, they did win the game. The 2 games that he was really not effective in, they win, go figure. And then the ones that he showed life in, they didn't play well at all as a team. So maybe that's a little concerning as well. I think the Bears are more of a grinding team than the Commanders. And I think that kind of sets up Caleb Williams to not be as consistent or reliable as a fantasy quarterback. So we'll see. Panthers matchup, obviously on paper, it's really good here for everything that Caleb Williams and this offense wants to do. But we also need Andy Dalton, the former Bear, to show up this week and put up some points to make it more interesting with Caleb Williams. So I think that was the biggest thing, is that Stafford and the Rams, not much resistance in the game, and they kind of are going to reel it back and be conservative with Matt Eberflus if that happens.
Some really bad running back performances, starting off with Breece Hall, 4 rushing yards, 12 receiving yards against the Broncos. He splits the backfield with Braylon Allen. It's not like Allen did anything for fantasy either. He did outscore Hall. Hall gets the Vikings next week. Not a fantastic matchup for him either there. He's not come through with his top 3 costs either. Bijan Robinson was another guy who disappointed, but Hall has finished as the running back 10, 4, 12, 49. So like one huge week so far. He needs to be better than that. And then with Bijan, 7 carries, 28 yards. Yeah, at least he gets the 4 receptions for 46 yards. So if you're in PPR leagues, it wasn't like the worst, but still terrible. No touchdowns again. Like he's just not scoring any touchdowns. And Algier actually got more carries than him. So both Bijan and Brees Hall have not been worth their top price this year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem with Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson, our favorite underachieving, really good wide receiver. Maybe it's the product of Nathaniel Hackett. Just stop. He just needs to go. Aaron Rodgers is never going to let them fire him, which is sad because Aaron Rodgers is never going to unlock this offense the way he wants it if he sticks with Hackett. I'm sorry, he just is not that creative or interesting. Like Brees Hall is your best player in a game against the Broncos. By the way, that was the game where he broke out the first time, right? When he first faced them as a rookie. This is the team he absolutely exploded on. So find a way to get one of your best players more involved. I mean, this is really sad that you got to get him going. It's a one possession, really low scoring game. Brees Hall and Braylon Allen should be doing much more in a game like this. And then Wilson, I mean, they just like don't scheme him open. It's very annoying. So again, the Jets, I think, are having a problem with just maybe the scheme. And with the Falcons, we thought, right, Arthur Smith is gone. So what's going to happen? Kyle Pitts is going to see the ball. There's going to be less competition for Bijan Robinson. And now Zach Robinson is doing the same exact thing. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't think Robinson should be receiving back, especially in a one-possession game. They're looking for receivers, by the way. I mean, it's pretty much been Drake London and Darnell Mooney. You need other people to step up. So just underusing these weapons. So it may not be their fault with their talent, but, man, I think you might see an overcorrection on both of these guys with their usage next week.
Who knows with Kyle Pitts though? Like I'm not expecting him.
Not with Kyle Pitts. No, I think he's just struggling. I mean, this offense is a little bit complicated here coming over from the Rams, and maybe Kyle Pitts, again, he can't separate the way they would like. He doesn't win one-on-one matchups the way they want. I think his alignment is a little bit questionable. They don't use a lot of 12 personnel, so it's rough. So Kyle Pitts might need to be traded here to make anything happen, and we'll see. There's some teams that might be interested, but this guy has so much individual physical talent. They just have to find a way to unlock him.
Some other running backs that struggled. Najee Harris, he got 54 receiving yards, but on 12 carries could only get 19 rushing yards against the Colts defense. Cordero Patterson had no issues running against them. Justin Fields had no issues. Just Najee stunk it up, and Fields took both of the rushing touchdowns. Najee just is what he simply is, which he has been for a long time. It's a low-end RB2 in any given week, and that's kind of what you're hoping for there. Carson Steele got his job taken away. Kareem Hunt.
Get him out of here.
Kareem Hunt has taken over this backfield. It's not like it turned into a great day for Kareem Hunt because Samaje Perine stole the rushing touchdown. But both Hunt and Perine played more snaps than Carson Steele. Steele only played 11 offensive snaps, so he's done for fantasy value.
Stop. Yeah, don't sell me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also on his way back here, so this is going to complicate things a little bit more. But Hunt looks like the guy that you want out of this backfield. I think even with CEH, as long as Pacheco's out, I mean, they just plugged Hunt back in and looked like he was thrown back to his old days with the Chiefs.
Yeah, he had a good game, over almost 5 yards per carry. J.K. Dobbins has come back to life, unfortunately. Amazing first 2 weeks. This last week, 14 carries, 32 yards, 3 receptions, 30 yards, no touchdowns again. Finishes the running back 39 last week, and then the 31 running back 31 so far in the week this week. What are you doing with J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, the matchups increased in difficulty big time, right? He went to the Steelers and Chiefs, and he started out with the Raiders and Panthers. I mean, it's a big 180 on the matchup. So it has to be a good matchup, I guess. Dobbins has to be in a matchup where you feel like they're going to be in the game and they're going to run the ball. It also doesn't help that this passing game is rather compressed here with Justin Herbert. He's not healthy, so that keeps people at bay as well. So they're not stretching the field, right? You need to open it up here if you're going to see Dobbins. So again, I would play him more in the better matchups at this point if you can. I mean, he's still volume-based play. He could score and all that in any game, but I wouldn't feel totally confident about it. Again, he's not going to get you enough in the passing game to pay off even if he has a bad rushing day.
Yeah, it's not been fun to been playing him the last couple weeks. That's for sure. We're going to get into the most surprising performances of the week. Are we going to trust those players moving forward? Some of them may be available on waivers, maybe available in trades. So we will give you our opinions on these performances to finish up our reactions to week 4.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. That's America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, this has been a great quarter of the season, and if you're not in the action yet, you can start right now as we have 3/4 of the season left. You can go get a big return on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sportsbook. So just watch games because you might be getting a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So you can track your bets, see what's going on, see how you can improve your bets there. It's really great that we have FanDuel Sportsbook as official partner here of Locked On Fantasy Football because, again, we trust them, and you should too. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com. Good stuff tonight. I will give you my picks real quick. I do think the Seahawks will go to Detroit and cover. I think the Lions win that game. And I do love the Dolphins here with Tyler Huntley at home against the Titans. So those are my sides here with the spread. Check it out at FanDuel.com to make your own bets in those games. Again, FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Get in on the NFL action now. All right, Michelle, it is time to end the show and continue our look at the stock watch coming out of week 4. All the good reactions have been in our past. Now let's look at some bad things that happened that we did not expect. We might have had these people on the bench. DeAndre Swift. Oh my gosh. I had him in my lineup. I will tell you, I had him playing you. I said, should I get DeAndre Swift out of the lineup? And I said, okay, I'll just leave him there. Like he was like the 4th flex or how many players we have in this league. And I said, I'll just keep him in there. Like maybe he'll go off. The Rams do stink. And then he goes off. I mean, a lot of people probably saw this on their bench and it just was a very sinking feeling. But again, he just showed his talent and maybe they used him in the right way. It's very frustrating, this Bears offense, but 93 rushing yards. Had a TD there, 7 catches for 72 yards. That's what I thought his role was going to be on this team. So maybe they just figured it out. I think they just rope-a-doped everyone with all that Roschon Johnson hype, who did score, by the way, in the middle of the week.
Yeah, Roschon Johnson did play 22 snaps. He still got out there a lot. Swift just got 16 carries, 93 yards, a touchdown, and like you said, led the team with 7 receptions, 72 yards. I do not expect this from him moving forward. Maybe now he's at least playable because he wasn't headed he's finished as the running back 49, 37, and 46. Like I had him buried in my rankings for a good reason because he was stinking, right? Like he was playing terrible. Yeah. This Bears offense stunk. This Bears offense still stunk this last game, but DeAndre Swift just got it done. I'm still hesitant to trust him moving forward. If I did roster him and someone was willing to trade me for him, I am willing to offload him instantly after that big game. Same, I don't know if I should say same thing about Michael Pittman Jr., but he did have by far his best game this week. He put up 6 receptions, 113 yards. It's Josh Downs who got into the end zone with 8 receptions, 82 yards. Josh Downs looked fabulous. I mean, he was impossible. The Steelers could not cover that man. But this was with Joe Flacco playing the majority of the game. Now, if it's Anthony Richardson playing the majority of the game, I don't know how thrilled I'm going to be to play either one. But I do think Josh Downs, like if he's on waivers, he should be picked up. I wanted to pick him up last week, hold on to him on my bench. I did do that in my leagues. I'm happy to have him. I don't know if we're going to be as happy every week if it's not Joe Flacco back there.
Yeah, what you're seeing is you get effective volume back, and you saw that with the Panthers, right? Deontay Johnson suddenly burst on the scene. You've had games from Adam Thielen before he got hurt and Xavier Legette. So now you look at, here's a guy that's not going to take off and run, right? He's going to be in the pocket. He's going to pass the ball to these guys and not going to call himself to check down. And that's what you saw with Josh Downs. He was catching a lot of short area balls that I think Anthony Richardson wants to throw the hero balls down the field. And Pittman and Downs, that's not really their strength. They're not field stretchers. They're guys that can run routes and get open. So you finally had a quarterback in Flacco who understood that. So we'll see. It's a hip pointer for Richardson. They're optimistic he'll go this week, but man, I just wonder again. Same thing we're seeing with the Cleveland and Deshaun Watson instead of Flacco. Maybe Flacco's good at unlocking the weapons because he lets them do the work, right? Get them open, throw to them. He's not afraid, which is great. He can throw into tight windows still. He's got that big arm where he's not afraid and he's very confident. He's been around. He's won a Super Bowl. He's fine. Like he's gravy in this part of his career, right? So maybe there's that. And Flacco, I think he's just, I have to hand it to him. He could have just pouted and walked away, right? But he's just come back and now he's a super sub.
Yeah, I wish Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback.
Yeah,
I really did.
happen.
And it's the same thing with Jameis Winston, like you brought up for Cleveland. That would help my Amari Cooper shares for sure. Now, with the Packers, we brought up Jayden Reed being excellent with Jordan Love. He had a great game. And then Christian Watson goes down. So love Jayden Reed moving forward. But Dontavian Wicks had a huge game as well with 2 touchdowns on 13 targets. Brought in 78 yards, but those 2 touchdowns were huge. And then Tucker Kraft scores a touchdown as well, gets 9 targets, 6 receptions, 53 yards. Now, they were coming back from a 28-0 deficit in the first half, right? So a lot of throwing, and Jordan Love just loves to throw those interceptions. So they just had to keep throwing the ball. But I do think Wicks could be interesting with Christian Watson out moving forward. If Watson, it seems like it's going to miss at least a few weeks with the high ankle sprain. I think Wicks could be an interesting flex play. And then Tucker Kraft, I mean, with how gross the tight end position is, if he's going to be now the main, there's actually a clear difference between Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave with their playing time, which it was in week 4. Kraft played 85% of snaps while Musgrave was only on the field for 33%. If that's the case, I think Kraft is a viable fantasy tight end moving forward.
Yeah, let's see if they can compress this a little bit. This is what I was talking about. Yeah, Romeo Doubs a little bit involved, but you look at Watson, he's just unreliable to stay on the field. No matter what he does, experimental treatments, whatever, soft tissue, he's just never going to be on the field consistently. So when you look at Reed, he's clearly the guy from the middle of the field. You got Wicks. I've always liked his skill set. And you've got Kraft, who I think gets open a little bit better. Luke Musgrave, a little bit field stretching dependent as a tight end, right? He needs those bigger plays where I think Tucker Kraft is more of that traditional tight end where he can light up and make some plays here. So maybe we're seeing some separation. I mean, Reed is Reed, right? But maybe Wicks and Kraft are separating a little bit from the crowd. So that would be helpful, right? If we know these are the guys that Jordan Love is going to trust in the top 3 of the pecking order when throwing the ball, then that's going to be very good. But let's see if it continues a trend here, or do we go back and then we see Doubs all of a sudden being the leading receiver, or does Musgrave start to make big plays? Let's see it develop here, but I think Wicks should be picked up in all 12-team leagues at this point. And Kraft, again, any of these tight ends who do anything, him, Cade Otton, you got to put them on your radar because it's a really ugly position right now.
Xavier Legette is getting it done with Andy Dalton. I mean, this was his first game without Adam Thielen out there, right? He played 86% of the team snaps, way up from the first 3 weeks because they needed him out there with Thielen out there. Thielen's going to miss at least 3 more weeks because he's on IR, but he had 10 targets, 6 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. A really solid game from him. Do you think with Andy Dalton, with being this second option on this team behind Deontay Johnson, that Legette is actually a pretty good pickup this week?
Yeah, what we're seeing is the effects of the Dave Canales offense when you have a veteran quarterback there. And you did well with Geno Smith. You did well with Baker Mayfield. There are guys that get unlocked, and you trust a few more receivers with the Canales here. So they get the Bears this week. This is not one of my favorite matchups here. I mean, it's really tough on the outside. And Legette is mainly an outside guy. Same thing with Deontay Johnson. You have looking at what Adam Thielen lost, I think you have to say that is key, right? To have him as a key target behind Johnson. They're not using their tight ends consistently. So you think this is the offense is going to flow through these 3 guys, Johnson, Legette, and Chuba Hubbard, right, at this point. So I do like his value. I just wouldn't play him this week. I think he's going to be more involved as we go forward. But, yeah, this matchup is tough, but I think he needs to be rostered in most 12 to 14 team leagues.
Yeah, I mean, even Tutu Atwell could put up 82 yards against the Bears last week. So
Yeah,
it's not like he wouldn't be
yeah,
playable. It's not. I would like to see another game from him, but they did use a first round pick on him, and now that he's getting playing time, it makes sense that he's getting targeted with Andy Dalton. Two running backs that had good games. Chase Brown, he got the 2 rushing touchdowns. It's so weird because Chase Brown and Zach Moss are playing the opposite roles that we thought. Moss is the receiving back all of a sudden, and then Chase Brown got the 2 goal line carries. Moss's fantasy day was fine as well. He scored 16 fantasy points in half PPR. He got a touchdown as a receiver. But yeah, Brown got both of those touchdowns. Both Brown and Moss got 15 carries. Brown's snap count went up to 27. Moss still outsnapped him by 13, but it's getting closer. I think Chase Brown, in certain matchups, maybe he's a viable option. But against the Ravens next week, like I'm not gonna get cute and start Chase Brown.
yeah. This was almost the ideal Bengals game in terms of fantasy production. You had T. Higgins doing his thing behind Jamar Chase, who had the big play touchdown early in the game. I think they got their split right the way they wanted with Moss and Brown. Now, Brown is just hard to trust thing. Moss is a guy that they're going to trust a lot more in key situations. It was just the way that they just move the ball in the Panthers. So this is probably good news for the Bears and their running backs this week in this Panthers matchup. But Chase Brown, they've liked him. I think his usage is going to be fickle and inconsistent to me. So just be careful. He's going to be a guy you want to have. But if you're really going to trust either one of these guys to have big games, I think you need either Moss or Brown to get hurt.
Moss could have had a huge game if he got those goal line carries. I mean,
Yeah.
the one Brown doesn't even have to do anything. He just walks in.
Yeah.
Like I could have been back there and I could have scored. But yeah, Moss could have had 3 touchdowns in that game. But again, like Moss has been a fine play. He's the guy you keep playing. Chase Brown, I need to see him being utilized in this way more often, and then maybe I'll start to trust him. But against the Ravens next week, not going to happen. And then for the Ravens backfield, Justice Hill, leading receiver last night, 6 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. This was his first good fantasy week. He finished right now he's the running back 9 heading into Monday Night Football. I don't really care for Justice Hill. I don't think this is the way he's always going to be used. It's going to be too up and down, and you're never going to know whether it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good point to make. Like, if you're hurting and you need players, let's examine certain matchups and the way we think they're going to go, right? And I could have told you that they were going to attack the Bills a lot with Derrick Henry, but that should have led us to say the Bills are not good with Matt Milano out there in coverage and short area. We just didn't know it was going to be Justice Hill more than the tight end. So this is probably going to be Hill's biggest game of the year. I'm just going to call it right now. He's a good change of pace. I think you want him if you've got Derrick Henry. You want to make sure that you're tightened up here behind Henry because I think they would go there. But other than that, no, justice will not be served on the waiver wire unless you're really desperate. I mean, it is the Bengals. They stink up front. So maybe you can think about it that way this week.
Yeah, that is it for today's episode. Thank you to all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Everydayers, we'll be back tomorrow digging into waiver pickups much, much more. So we'll get into all of that, help you make those moves before your deadline tomorrow night into Wednesday morning. So we'll talk to you then. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.